And my role was eliminated. I'll speak from my experience. My role was eliminated at Manulife, and I was devastated at the time. I was heartbroken. I thought I had this great long career. I was going to retire there. I was going to keep growing up in executive levels. But I look back and say, what a gift. I didn't know that I needed something new. I was trying to grow within the organization, but what I really needed was to grow without the organization. And that wasn't a performance. It was a role elimination situation. But yeah, I think the root would be integrity and ethics. I mean, we have a pretty high standard of that here.
Hi, I'm Lorne Rubis. I'm the host of Culture Talks, where we engage next-gen leaders to find out how they're taking on some of the world's nastiest, most challenging problems, what they're doing about it, and why and how they're going about their journey. So today, I'm so delighted to have one of my favorite people, wonderful leader, that I've gotten to know over the last couple of years. Stacie Calder, who's the EVP of Marketing and Distribution for a wonderful company called Conquest Planning. You're going to learn a little bit about them. I'm sure you'll go onto their website and find out a lot more. And Stacie, welcome to Culture Talks. We're going to have a fun conversation together.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks for having me, Lauren.
A little background around Stacie. She's got all the bells and whistles. When you go on her LinkedIn profile, if you do, massive accomplishments, has been in the financial industry for, I can't believe this, 20 years or so. Has an MBA, and full disclosure, was in my very first class that I taught at Harvard. And there were only a couple of people from Canada there. She was one of them. And she was magnetic then and continues to be, and it's been fun watching her career and her leadership just continue to escalate and the impact that you're having. And you're a mom, I think, of 3. Do I understand that correctly?
That's right.
And while you've got full responsibility, and Conquest is now in all through North America with all the big brand financial institutions, but I think you're also releasing in the UK, or you are there. You're on your way to Australia. It's a worldwide endeavor. It's a serious venture. Started out of Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, for all of our people that are not Canadian in the audience. There are many of you. And how great of it is. We're going to hear a little bit about that story. And all along in your life, right from the beginning, you've been about fitness, right?
I have.
You were a trainer, a personal trainer, as your career grew, and now you're about financial fitness. But here you are. So tell us about what brought you to Conquest Planning. You know, I know you've talked about this incredible visionary CEO and the story. So give us a little bit of what was the inflection point for Stacie meets Conquest, and what are you up to?
Sure. When my career was coming to a close at big corporate, so I worked at Manulife for 15 years of my career in small business and retail bank distribution. I've told this story a few times, but I used to meet with a group of friends. We called ourselves the Brain Trust, and we would meet together on Saturday morning. We all worked at Manulife, a couple currently and some past employees, and we would talk about innovation in the financial services sector. And we would actually bring articles that we would talk about, and very nerdy, I know, but we were really passionate about innovating the mortgage origination process, onboarding new clients, looking at different and new ways that were happening in the industry around fintech specifically. And a number of the articles that we would bring to the table Saturday morning to discuss had Power Corp as part of the genesis, or had their fingers in something that was going on there. So when I looked to see what my next opportunity would be, I actually reached out to a friend who sat on the FP Canada board. I knew that they had some connections in with Power Corp, so I asked for a referral in there. Kind of had my resume ready and was looking for something in fintech, and they introduced me to Sagard. Sagard is a VC that has investment in a number of companies, and they went on to introduce me to a number of their portfolio organizations, one of which was Conquest. And I remember my first discussion with Brad, our Chief Revenue Officer at Conquest, and it was probably only 30 minutes, but I was totally sold and enamored by the vision of how they were helping to democratize access to advice across the entire ecosystem. So we had a few few short conversations and they made me an offer, and I started 2 or 3 days after I ended my career at Manulife.
Yeah, well, that's a great journey. Now, a number of our audience may not be aware of, fintechs or financial technology companies, but the nasty problem is or the challenge we all have is that we all have financial world we live in. But financial advice always seemed like it was there just for very high net worth people.
Mhm.
You had to have a whole bunch of money. But you and Conquest Planning, your purpose is, if I read it off your website and I'm just talking to you, our purpose is to make personalized financial advice accessible to all. Like all is like everybody.
Everybody.
So talk about that. How does that happen? How do you make it available to, you've got people struggling, right, Stacie? You got people that are trying to make their rent or whatever, and inflation, and how do you democratize and make it something that's real for all?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting perspective that our founding members took when they built the software. Traditional financial planning advice is delivered through a variety. There's great software out there that helps individuals, typically of high net worth, get great advice around tax planning, estate planning, investing. But most of those softwares were built for use by advisors. When our founding crew came back to the industry, they had created a platform called Naviplan prior to Conquest, exited that business in 2011, and Conquest got back together or was founded in 2018. And when they thought about building a software, they wanted to have it scale the entire wealth continuum rather than just be built for a niche segment of the market. So as they built the software, which is built on a completely open two-way API, which just means it can be configured very easily for the firms that we support. They built it to the level of tax code for each jurisdiction that we operate in, which means we can deploy our tool to individuals that have that just starting out. You mentioned paycheck to paycheck, or they're trying to buy their first home. Historically, those advice delivery experiences were delivered through standalone calculators, and not even historically, even today. If you need a mortgage, you go into an institution or go see a broker and they get you the best mortgage that they can do, but they're looking at that in isolation. Of course, they're looking at your debt service ratios, they're looking at your cash flow ability, but it doesn't necessarily look to your holistic situation. So the platform that Conquest has built enables micro journeys like that. So a digital advice direct for cash flow planning needs when you're trying to acquire a residence or go to school, all the way up to the ultra high net worth estate planning needs required by financial advisors working with high net worth clients. And then how people engage with it is really differentiated because we've embedded artificial intelligence in the form of an expert engine that enables that end consumer to do it yourself. So digital advice accessible through large financial institutions. We don't go direct to consumers. We help institutions like pension programs. Think about the largest 401k providers in the US, or unions and institutions like that are delivering retirement advice to groups of members that normally today they're doing either with calculators or trying to push financial literacy and hoping the members or the participants are consuming that information. Our platform will deliver contextualized digital advice right to the individual and suggest the next best action for them to take to achieve their goal.
And I want to come back after and make sure we plug this so that people, because I know people watching this podcast are going to want to see how they can access it, who might be a partner that they can do it with. But one way or another, wherever we are in our journey, we make some revenue. We're paying bills. We're hoping to save for whatever, whether it's our, retirement or kids' education or whatever it may be. And it requires a systemic planning, not just a single one-off calculator, like you say, when you're going for a car loan or you're going for a mortgage. And you guys are democratizing that, using AI to do that. That is so cool, because wouldn't it be great if everybody had systemic financial advice and not to feel like they've got to have a certain amount of money to do that. But let's talk about that purpose for a minute. There's a story on your website Our reason for existence is simple. We want an engine that enables personalized financial advice delivery when and how customers want it. To enable goal achievement while navigating the twists and turns that life presents, no goal is too small or too big. Simply put, to make personalized financial advice accessible to all. So you and I, and through this podcast, we talk about the power and importance of purpose, the why. How do you do that at Conquest to make sure that everybody that joins the team understands that purpose, Stacie? How do you do that? How do you make that happen?
Yeah, one of the things that attracted me to Conquest was the depth of character of the founding members and the leadership team and the executive team that is here. The individuals who founded this company did not need to come back into this business from a financial standpoint. They're in a position well retired from the last exit. But when I came in and was interviewing and I talked to all of the board of directors and the C-suite shortly after I started, I was incredibly impressed with the passion that they had for what they were doing. In fact, the chief technology officer, when I joined, I was doing appreciative inquiry interviews and talking about, learning more about why they got into this business as I was working on marketing and our value proposition and putting together, who we wanted to be in market from a public facing standpoint. And he said to me, I want to make the next generation more financially fit than what my generation was. And he talked about his grandchildren having a better financial, stable, accessible advice in their personal circumstances. And to me, that really represented the why and the purpose. And as I've been here for the last 4 years, that purpose is just infused in the organization. It's in everything we do. Every question we ask across any department is, how can we get more plans into the hands of the people that we serve? And so when we're working on strategy or we're going through explosive growth right now, so we're having to make sure we're resourced properly and our structure is good and efficient, we all are guided by that same purpose of how are we helping more end families get financially fit.
Yeah, so I want to dig into that a little bit further because a lot of the CEOs that we're talking to, next gen CEOs, are scaling, right? They're scaling up their companies. You already are well underway. You're not into early series funding. You are now just growing like hell, scaling like hell. It's also scary because every single person you bring on is impacting the brand of Conquest Planning. Mm-hmm. So if you were interviewing me to join Conquest Planning, how would you help to be sure that, I wasn't just punching in and wanting to go along for the ride? How do you know that I really give a damn about the purpose?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think cultural fit is a really important thing to everybody at Conquest. Our head of people and culture has done a great job actually going through and recording interviews with each of the leaders of the departments across of our organization. And they put that together and they show it to new employees that are coming aboard to help get them passionate about the vision. But throughout the interview process, we do a lot of cross interviews. So it's not just one level interview. We have our people and culture team that are reviewing candidates, and then the hiring manager is reviewing the candidate, and then we do cross-functional interviews as well. One of the questions I always ask, of course, because I'm passionate about culture and learned so much in the course that I took with you back, I think it was 2019, pre-pandemic. We got to go in person. It was amazing. But one of the questions I always ask is about culture and what kind of cultures have worked well for these individuals, what ones haven't, and what do they look for engagement when they're looking for career opportunity. And I think we've been quite fortunate. The team that we've got, we're only, just north of 150 people total right now. But I think you could call up any one of the individuals on the team and they will all have their own personal spin on our story, what we're doing and how we're trying to achieve, this massive goal of democratizing access to advice across the globe.
Yeah. So take that a step further. So there's this careful selection process, and I'm going to come back to your values, which are very explicitly outlined, because so many organizations, values is just, you have a gag reflex to them, right? Because, it's like, they sit on a website, but they don't live. But I'm going to come back because you and I have talked a little bit about how much they live at Conquest Planning, but I want to go back to the purpose again around when you onboard people. I think there's onboarding and welcoming. What do you do at Conquest Planning? Is that something that you think you do really well? Or do people just show up and, because a lot of your stuff, your people work remotely too, right? So I'm going to come back to that because you've turned that into a strength. I mean, you're not in Winnipeg today. You're working remotely, and you got people that report to you all over North America. But let's come back to this. How do people get welcomed and onboarded?
I think it's something that's actually evolved over the last 4 years that I've been here. I think I was employee number 40 when they brought me aboard. And when I came aboard, 70% of the team was actually original past colleagues together. So they kind of stormed and performed together. They had like this natural culture that wasn't identified and the values weren't called out on the website. It was really interesting for me to come in from an outside and be included in this culture, and then also identify as an outsider, how do you communicate those things? How do you keep those things like core and front and center as we continue to grow? So I think from the time I started till today, we've gone through a lot of things. One was the values exercise. You mentioned the values on our website. That was an organization-wide endeavor.
Okay.
We actually included everybody in that exercise. Again, one of the case studies we had done at that Harvard course talked about, the top-down push of values. You put them on a website and then nobody actually lives by them. After these appreciative inquiry interviews that we did and then interviewing the board of directors, we engaged the team and actually said, what do you value and what do you believe we value? And that culminated in the values that you see on our website today. And it was a really interesting exercise because I just said, if I could just bottle up from a marketing lens, so I look after distribution as well, but from a marketing lens, if I could just bottle up very specifically the values that are clearly prevalent here today and showcase those to the world, this company will be unstoppable because there's such deep purpose and mission in what they're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to accomplish.
I love that you do this very engaged, democratized way of kind of coming up with these sort of these behaviors that align you. Let me dig into one of them. Mm-hmm. Respect, embracing awareness and admiration of diverse ideals. There's a lot of pushback on DE&I right now and diversity and it's not very politically popular, certainly in some geopolitical areas. And so when you get pushed back like that and there's like a trend against how do you stay true to that? How do you stay true to respect? What are you doing to do that at Conquest Planning?
The genesis of this value, respect, is actually, I could attribute it directly to our president and CEO, although, all the leaders at our organization really embrace this and don't just embrace it, they live it. Dr. Mark Evans, our CEO, is incredible at gathering people and bringing out the best in them. And a really good example that I've had over the years is his ability to identify a problem or a problem has been identified. And he's really big on bringing people together to brainstorm on that opportunity. He's not one to come out and say, this is the best way. He will give direction. He'll give opinion. He has so much history and experience in the industry and building it before and coming back to build something new and different that's more modern and overcome all the challenges that they had previously. But these brainstorming sessions that I participated in, there is time around the table for everybody to contribute. And there is massive value from respecting the background, the experiences, the perspectives of people across the team. And we always come out with a better solution at the end of it. So it's very inclusive from, hey, we've got this problem, let's overcome it. But not just even problems, like on the innovation front. One of our other values is innovation. Bringing these brainstorms together to think of things differently, because we're really trying to pioneer the future of advice, right? That means everything that was in the past and how it worked, we don't want to do it that way. It didn't work. We didn't have living plans. My parents, I look at them going into retirement and they didn't have this kind of advice. They had a retirement calculator they were given. They were told what their pension would be, and they said, we're told to live in that. There was no lifestyle strategies or a sort of living plan to say, you could take this trip, but not that trip. You could buy this house, but not that house. You need to downsize your house in retirement. So the genesis of that respect value really comes from embracing awareness and the diversity, not just of ethnicity and individuals, because we're a small company, so it's really hard to hit like, those diversity quotas that you look at these big organizations that are looking, background, male, female, all those things, which are all really important. The respect that we have is just seeing the individual for the contribution that they make to the organization, and then drawing that out and growing together.
And that's where the real sense of belonging comes, when you really matter as a person. And of course, your background, your uniqueness, all the identity matters. It brings to the diversity, but it's being there and really making a difference. I'm going to put you on the spot on the collaboration value.
Okay.
I'm working for you. I'm on your team. And what do you look for to make sure that I'm a collaborator? How do you know I'm a collaborator? What kind of conversation would you have with me to coach me to be a better collaborator?
That's a really great question. What I look for in collaboration is, listen, there's some people that are natural collaborators, right? They have an opinion, they're confident to share it. Sometimes those people can dominate the conversation, and the people that have really great ideas, there's people that are introverted. And I think I've learned over the years running a number of teams, or running's a terrible word. Please disregard I said that.
Oh, I understand it. Yeah.
Leading a team and working shoulder to shoulder with these people. It's taken me time and learned questions to draw those people that have a naturally quieter voice out from the background and make sure there's space for those voices to be heard. When I'm looking for collaboration, I believe collaboration is not just agreeing with whatever it is that I'm suggesting. I believe it's coming with a thoughtful answer, and something that, if it's dissenting or disagreeing, but doing so respectfully, that makes it much stronger. I have a ton of respect for individuals like that. During the interview process, I look at what the kind of questions are that they have for us, and are they thinking about themselves in the position and like potential problems they'd have in the position, or are they just thinking about next steps to get the job? Like, I just want to get the job, so I'm just answering those questions. So yeah, for me, collaboration is rooted in really great communication, which is listening skills, ability to communicate and ask questions effectively, and then the ability to contribute in a way that is authentic to their skills and experience.
Yeah, and I know that's another one of your values, and I want to throw out a proposition that I've been kind of working on a little bit, and just get your reaction as an emerging leader, next gen leader on this, is that collaboration. I expect that advanced organizations are going to be highly collaborative between peers and between everybody, right? Because you got to tap into this innovation, the mindset, the thinking of everybody. What's your expectation around collaborating between human and machines? That's got to be part of the ethos going forward. What's your take on that?
It's such a great point of discussion, because we are in information overload, right? I look at my email inbox and it just gets bigger and bigger. There's marketing people coming in there. I look at how we collaborate with peers. There's instant messenger, there's like IM type platforms. At Conquest, we use Slack. It's been incredibly great for us. At my previous employer, we use Teams chats to go back and forth. Slack has been really great for us in terms of the ability to create channels that are specific to customers that we're working with, and bring the right people in at the right time and make sure that just-in-time information is there. But in terms of like the interaction for collaboration between human and machines, let's face it, machines can be a huge help for us in this area if we choose the right platforms and the right connected platforms, so that we're not duplicating data entry. We're not sending an email and then retyping it into Salesforce. We're not, sharing information one place where it should be shared somewhere else and have to redo it. So I think in terms of like scaling businesses and having operational efficiency, leveraging really great technology stacks is like table stakes for companies.
And in some ways, that's kind of a metaphor for who you are at Conquest Planning. I mean, your relationship between the end user customer who's getting the advice and the platform. And isn't your robot Sam? Is that the name of your bot that goes in there giving all the advice along with the advisor? And I mean, that's really a robust AI, machine learning, collaborative activity to create a better financial plan for everybody. So it's kind of the essence of who you are. So how would I, and I know this is the dark side of values, but how would I get fired at Conquest Planning?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, that's always a last resort. I'll say that first. I don't think anybody wants to be in a position where you need to be exited from a position, but it can happen from time
Yeah.
to time. I think ethics would be the root of that, in terms
Your
of like
integrity value, right? Your integrity value.
integrity value and around sort of ethics and performance. We all have a big contribution to contribute. I know I've had to exit people in the past in my career, and it's a terrible feeling in a situation as a human. But as a leader, I've had individuals come back to me after the fact and say thank you. And my role was eliminated. I'll speak from my experience. My role was eliminated at Manulife, and I was devastated at the time. I was heartbroken. I thought I had this great long career. I was going to retire there. I was going to keep growing up in executive levels. But I look back and say, what a gift. I didn't know that I needed something new. I was trying to grow within the organization, but what I really needed was to grow without the organization. And that wasn't a performance. It was a role elimination situation. But yeah, I think the root would be integrity and ethics. I mean, we have a pretty high standard of that here at Conquest.
Yeah. Stacie, I know you're wicked smart, and I mean that in the most non-patronizing way. I know you are, and I know you can do a plank for about 4 minutes. So you could be an intimidating person.
Oh dear.
You could be an intimidate. You can be. You can be. You could have a perfection aura around you. And how do you make yourself real, authentic, vulnerable? How do I How do I find out that you're a great, not perfect leader?
That has been a work in progress over my entire career. I was on another podcast recently actually talking about leadership, and it reminded me of a story. When I was a young leader, I got promoted in my early 30s to a RVP position. I hadn't had sort of the director level. I skipped a level. I completed my MBA and performance wise and was fortunate to be the successful candidate for that role. And in my effort to be perfect at it and to perform and prove that I deserve to be there and prove that, nobody could do a better job than me, I came off as robotic, and my ability to work and continue to chug through stuff set an unfair and unrealistic expectation for the team. And gratefully, I had a colleague and a friend who was on my team, and she pulled me aside one day and said, "You need to be more vulnerable. People are not connecting with you. You're alienating people. You're doing good work and everybody likes you and wants to help you, but there's not a degree of grace and empathy that should have been there." And so we started doing other things. We started looking at Facet 5. We did the Myers-Briggs. We started doing personality profiling and taking time to actually see how we were showing up and appreciate the diversity on the team. So I would say, like, I don't view myself that way. I have this like huge passion for helping to improve the life and health and well-being of my team. In fact, the first time I saw one of my team members stand on stage and accept an award, I'd been in production for a number of years. I was always on stage, got the awards. That was great. But the feeling I got sitting in the crowd watching my team member be up there on stage was one of the most gratifying feelings I've ever had, and I wanted more of that. So from a leadership lens, asking lots of questions, asking for feedback, giving space and time, little things too, like I would work late in the evening because I had 3 kids and I would take fitness classes at some point. So I would work my schedule how it worked for me, but I wasn't realizing that was setting unfair expectations just by my actions. I could do something simple like set an alarm on the email for it to go out in the morning during work hours rather than after work hours, where because I was in a leadership role, people would think, oh, I gotta get an email at 10 o'clock at night from
Stacey's paying
Stacie.
me, so I've got to
Yeah,
get.
she's making me respond to it. And this unspoken expectation that wasn't my expectation, but being
Right.
cognizant of those things, I think has been a lot of learning throughout my career as a leader.
I have to, just because I think part of this is inspiring and informing others. And if you don't mind, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Look, you've got 3 kids. You have got live in Kelowna in the Okanagan. You have people all around the world reporting to you. You've got this massive, important job with huge results. And I think, and I don't mean to make it personal, but I think you're a single mom too.
I am, yeah.
How the hell do you What's the advice around integrating work and life and not just being a burnt out, kind of fizzled, end of a martini at the end of every day? How do you manage this, Stacie?
Well, I mean, some days there are those days, Lauren, but I have learned the art of asking for help and not being ashamed of it. Yesterday I had after school, so I flex work schedule. Conquest adopts work from anywhere. We promote that. We believe the contribution of our people matters more than the location where they're sitting. And we've got security measures in place to make sure that everything they're doing is safe and secure. But yesterday I had after work, I was done at 3 o'clock. I had one child who had gymnastics. The other child is in a science, technology, engineering and program and academy. The other one had basketball. And my parents are normally in town, so they often will help when I have lapovers for delivering kids or picking kids up from different activities. I will ask them for help. They're out of town yesterday. I have this wonderful community of friends that luckily we have kids the same age. So I just phoned a friend and said, hey, can you pick up my daughter and take her to gymnastics, and then I'll pick the girls up after and bring them home. I'm also fortunate to have a really great relationship with my kid's dad and his fiance. We work very well together and co-parent very well. We have a family calendar, but I think the art of asking for help and not being too prideful to say, this is what I can do. And I try and schedule things in and manage the calendar that way and not overbook things so we don't have things overlapping, but just a matter of planning.
Yeah, but thank you for letting me probe there, because one of the lessons that emerging leaders evolve to, next gen leaders, is the power of asking for help. It is one of the most important aspects of building psychological safety and learning, is when you see that a leader that you work around or for or with or by can ask for help, genuinely ask for help. It is one of the most engaging, respectful things you could do. So thank you for sharing that message, and not, like you say, letting pride get in the way of just sometimes just saying, hey, I just need some help on this. And that may be personally, it may be professionally, it may be any other. And I wanna pursue that a little bit further, because one of the things we encourage again, and as next gen leaders are building greater workplaces, is this idea of a psychologically safe place, but still having very high standards of excellence. How do you deal with mistakes at Conquest Planning? Like, what's your philosophy on it? How do you do that? How do you build mistake management? You're going to make mistakes, right? Everybody is. The company is. You're going to have some clients that things don't go so well, blah, blah, blah. How do you build that into the culture of the company?
I love the concept of psychological safety. Sometimes there's certain generations that get mocked a little bit right now about I don't feel safe. But psychological safety is a really important aspect of an effective culture and a high performing team.
Yeah.
You just look at some of the use cases around airlines or situations where the environment hasn't been safe, so people have hid mistakes and there's been detrimental outcomes to it. We do have a concept of debriefs after we deploy someone. So when we work with large financial institutions, so we have very big deployments. We're tightly integrating to their back office systems. We're bringing in account information, demographic information, goal information. We're feeding action plans back out into their CRM systems so that clients are taking action on the recommendation that's within their living financial plan. So some of these implementations are really big, and sometimes there's something that might go wrong with them. The thing I've been most impressed with is how quickly Conquest gets on it, and it's again goes to that value of collaboration. All the relevant stakeholders are brought in. Sometimes we've had to come in after hours. Some of our deployments happen at night. We have a strict escalation process that is given to our clients so that they can inform us if their testing has gone wrong or something is not right. And then we pivot resources to make sure that those types of potential things that go wrong are fixed right away. It's gone really well for our engagement scores because at the end of the day, we're really accountable for the things that we do wrong. A good example was we deployed for one firm and the asset allocation model was not correct, and we didn't get on it as quickly as we should for just a couple hours. But the level of accountability, our chief technology officer got on the phone. We were all on first thing in the morning with the client and the chief technology officer. We had a full diagnostic. We knew exactly what had happened. And then we changed the process a little bit to ensure it wouldn't happen again. So I think this concept of collaboration and continual innovation in our processes as we scale has been really important for us to create the safety to know that like I feel comfortable as Stacie to put my hand up, and I have had to like on the sales process. So that's for implementation of the technology. On the sales process side, I've told a client wrong information and committed to them we could do something that we couldn't do. And I had to go to our chief revenue officer and say, I made a mistake. Like, how can we fix this together? And we just have such a good, smart group of people that we just come together. I've never been reprimanded for that, but I learned from it and then I didn't do it again. So, and I think that comes from leadership also being humble and being able to admit if they've made a mistake, and then everybody feels like it's okay to be human and I'm going to give all my discretionary effort to do the very best that I can within my role.
A lot of the audience are struggling with watching this post-COVID debate that continues to linger on around remote work or not remote work, right? You know, Andy Jassy from Amazon telling everybody to get back, Morgan Stanley, you know, the Elon Musks of the world. At the same time, you and I know lots of organizations that are exceptionally successful and have great cultures that are remote. What do you do at Conquest Planning to have a thriving culture and to take and make the remote thing a positive part of who you are?
Yeah. I mean, there is two sides to the argument. There are some work environments where that collaboration and closeness can be really beneficial, you know, brainstorming different things and just the ability to create more personal relationships that are hard to do by remote, especially for individuals that are not extroverted. So when we're bringing in somebody who is going to be remote, we make sure that they're meeting with people from across the organization so they start to build that community and they feel safe reaching out if they have questions or they need help in one way or another. But we moved from an office environment to fully remote during the pandemic, and we had remote people before. I've been remote in my roles for literally the last 20 years because I'm in distribution and sales. So quite often I'm going to clients' homes or to their, you know, the institution that we're working with. But in terms of like what Conquest has done, we have such a great people and culture team. They provide webinars on work-life balance. They provide, you know, speakers that come in and talk to us about making sure that we're taking time to rejuvenate and recharge, and then that we're managing our work duties at home very well. And again, it comes from leadership, the trust that leadership has in our team and the autonomy that is given to make sure that they're able to perform their work, but also do it in an environment where they feel comfortable has been really beneficial for us.
And by the way, that is your number one lead. Well, I don't know if it's in that order, but it's at the top of your value list, trust, because it is really based on, like you said, getting results and trusting that people are going to do that and make their contribution.
Yeah.
As we kind of come to a wrap up here, a couple rapid things around having a growth mindset as part of a culture, continuous learning, continuous innovation. What do you do as a leader around continuous growth and learning? How do you do that, Stacie?
I read a lot of books and watch a lot of podcasts to expand my diversity of thought. We share a lot of those. We've done book studies where we'll have a certain topic that we're looking at. We debrief it. I'm very fortunate the team that I work with is naturally growth orientated. I look for growth mindsets when I'm building a sales team. I think it's really important, especially when we're innovating in the space, right? Like we're charging a new path that nobody has done before in a different way that nobody has done before. So that takes a lot of skill set and visioning power to be able to work with firms to help them see a more modern way to do things. I will give credit to my team. They have put on, you know, a sales excellence call that they run on their own, and they just share and collaborate, and they talk about wins, and they talk about challenges, and they bring, you know, certain emails that worked really well and other communication or structure of things so that we can leverage the work that each other is doing and make each other better. And I've been truly impressed by that as they've kind of come to the table and taken that growth mindset into their own hands and put something in place that's actionable, that they can stay motivated, because sales can be very hard. From getting a lot of no's before you get a yes. Fortunately, when people see our software, it's almost always a yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just giving the space and the time and the empowerment for people to continue to grow and that they feel motivated towards that purpose and vision and mission of the organization.
So let's wrap up with that purpose, back to this democratization and making financial planning available to all. For people who are listening here and they're going, this really kind of not only inspired me around thinking around leadership and culture and next gen companies, but I also would like to improve my financial planning. How do they connect with Conquest Planning? How would they I know you don't go directly to the end consumer, but how would they access that? How would they participate in a place that had Conquest Planning as a platform?
Yeah, so anybody who's listening who has a financial advisor today or works with a bank today, I'd encourage them to ask their financial advisor if they're using Conquest Planning as their financial planning platform. They can also inquire with their institution. We're serving almost 70% of the Canadian marketplace today, so we are very well penetrated in this market, and we are the engine under the hood powering a lot of the advice delivery experiences. We have been in the UK for a couple of years, and the US is our big focus this year. We just launched sort of fully there last year, and we're working with a number of firms in the US space. Our first partnership was with Bank of New York Mellon and their Pershing X Wove platform. So I think the best way to do it is to ask your advisor if you have one. If you don't have one, ask your institution you're dealing at. And we do announce all of our partnerships. So follow us on LinkedIn, just at Conquest Planning. And as we get new partnerships and new firms that we're supporting with our engine, we'll be sure to announce it on that channel.
Well, it's one of those great challenges in life to democratize financial planning so that we all might advance and live better lives, frankly. And the world seems to need all this thing that advances as humans these days. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your insights, hanging out with you. Part of this again is inspiring other leaders. You've got colleagues around that are going to listen to this, and I know they're going to just enjoy your thoughts and perspective as they continue on their journey. So, Stacie, thank you so much. It's great hanging out with you, and so glad you're in my first Harvard class. You were a spark there, and you continue to be a guiding light out there in the marketplace. So, and go Canada, even though I'm both an American and Canadian citizen. So tonight's the big game. But we'll release these sometime later in March, and the game will be over. But anyway, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
For having me. Yeah, it was great to see you and chat with you.
You too. Bye for now.